So, say for example, IKEA is a registered company on Donham and Brad Street.
Yeah.
The government is as well.
Yes, absolutely.
All forms of the government.
Absolutely, yeah. Each department, every separate. As far as I've seen, and I've done the homework. I've gone and looked at this. I'm not just talking off the top of my head. I've gone and looked at this, and I couldn't work it out. None of it made any sense to me whatsoever. Why are the police? Why are the Metropolitan Police registered as a corporation and have 11 county courts against them that they haven't paid? Why is Liverpool City Council registered as a corporation and have 63 county courts against them that they've never paid? Why is the House of Commons registered as a corporation and has one county court registered against it? What's going on?
Do you think people, when they heard this, would be shocked?
They were shocked, yeah. When I first did the Illusion talk, which is a long time ago now, I didn't know anything. I just knew I'd stumbled across something, and I knew the people I was talking to at the time were very dismissive of me, very dismissive indeed. I was like, how can I say? I was a bit of entertainment, a bit of fun. Yeah, I was coming out with these wild theories and talking about things, and and I was talking a little bits about what Shakespeare had said, and I crammed into 53 minutes. I crammed a whole lot of stuff that I didn't really comprehend at the time. I didn't get. Now I get it. Now I know what's going on, and it's fascinating that it's nowhere near as complicated as I first perceived it to be, because what I was looking at was very, very complicated things. Any Act of Parliament you read is wrote in such abominable language. It really is. They write in a paragraph which you could write in a sentence.
Do you think they do that on purpose?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Because it just doesn't make any sense. It just goes round and round and round the houses. Have you ever watched a politician on television being asked a direct question?
Do you think that they do that just so that normal men and women in this country don't understand?
Yeah, it's the same principle. Well, take a politician being asked a direct question on TV. Have you ever seen a politician actually answer a direct question? Because they can't. They can't answer something directly. They've actually been taught and programmed, and it is programming. I don't care what anybody says. It is. That's why it's called television. Well, actually, it's tell-live vision that uses programming, because the brain only works on pre-given information, can't work on anything else. So they have to install the information before they can actually use the information, or use a caution, or create a caution against something they've installed to be able to create the precaution. So they have to install all the information first, just like a computer. You can't use it until you've installed all the software. Yeah. It's exactly the same principle. We're no different to a computer. Well, if you take that principle that they will never answer a direct question, and obviously there's the saying that how do you know when a politician's lying? Because they're talking. I wouldn't class them all in that same category. I definitely wouldn't. I'm not here to pigeonhole everybody, because I know there's a lot of good men and women who are doing what they need to do to survive, because there is a very, very small minority of people in any country or any legally defined area on a map called a country that actually do live. Most just survive.
Pause. Can we go back to ask the question about are the police a private corporation?
So yeah, so all the police, the ambulance, the fire brigade, are they private corporations?
It depends what you mean by private. And there's a big issue, because obviously a lot of people don't know, but there is a number of ways of setting companies up. Obviously PLCs, limited companies, obviously limited liability, which is pretty much what they all are, limited liability, because generally what you look for is the change in names every 18 months. And I don't know if you've seen a lot of the brands that are out, they change names for no apparent reason, just like that. But that's basically a tax dodge, because all they're doing is they formulate one company, formulate a shadow company at the same time. They trade in one name for about 18 months. Then they offset all the assets to the new company and start trading, and the old company folds with all the liabilities. Now,
the government do this?
We've seen, well, we know for a fact it's been called the UK Corporation Limited, the United Kingdom Corporation, the United Kingdom Corporation Limited, and we now are of the opinion it is now UK PLC, even though they're kind of covering their tracks now, because we've been kind of like finding out about stuff. We've also know that they are now removing stuff from Companies House, and we have evidence of that they are actually officially removing stuff from Companies House, so we can't find it. But if you found it before and kept a copy of it, then it's very interesting, because I've actually shown this to people and said, look, there's this county council that actually was registered as a corporation on Companies House. It was then deregistered as a corporation on Companies House, and all that information doesn't exist there anymore. And this was only a few months ago. It's just, they've taken it away. I talked to an accountant at one of the talks I did, and the accountant said, yeah, we're up in arms about this because they actually changed the legislation to allow them to do that.
The government actually changed the legislation to allow them...
To allow the government to actually remove company information. Yeah, so they can actually go in now and manipulate the whole of Companies House to fine-tune it to only show what they want to be seen. There's companies like Ministry of Justice Limited. There's, what's the UK PLC Limited. We've got them published and just put question marks by it because we just haven't got a clue what's going on. The Ministry of Justice Limited is registered to a farm in somewhere like Leeds or Derbyshire. We don't know what's going on, but we kind of do know what's going on because they're the subsidiaries. When you go on, I can't remember the name of it now, but there is a place you can go on the internet. It's called @UK PLC, and you'll find that there's places like one's called Jupiter House. They happen to be named after all the planets, and Jupiter House is a holding company, and it has all the numbers, all the names and the registered numbers of the companies that are being held in limbo until such time as the other companies collapse. Or what they do is they collapse it deliberately and then change names. So we have seen the UK PLC at least 4 different names, which is recorded in Hansard's. Their own... Hansard's is the House of Lords, and what gets talked about in the House of Lords is recorded in Hansard's, word for word. And at least in 5 separate occasions, the United Kingdom Corporation has been talked about in the House of Lords.
Does what structure does the UK PLC follow? Does it follow a normal company structure? There's managers.
All the same.
Security.
Yeah, exactly the same. There isn't.
So what's the structure of UK PLC?
The UK PLC has a board of directors, which is the members of Parliament. The board of directors are there to maintain the interest of the shareholders, as any board of directors is.
Who are the shareholders?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, who are the shareholders? Who would possibly have shares in a company that is actually a country? Or who would have shares in 52 other countries that are all companies? Who possibly would do that? But we'll get back to that. So the board of directors is the MPs, and the Prime Minister is like sort of the managing director, if you like. The chairman is the Queen. So this is how the structure is things, but the shareholders in this case are 26 Lord Archbishops that sit in the House of Lords, plus the peers in the House of Lords are the shareholders.
So they benefit?
Absolutely, massively, yeah. They're benefiting from everything that goes through. See, statutes are bills. Bills are money-making orders. If you get a bill, what does it mean? It means someone wants money from you. So a bill is a money-making order. So when they put a bill through Parliament that becomes a statute, they've got little tricks that they can use. They can enact any part of a statute or Act of Parliament via what's called statutory instruments. So they can use a statutory instrument on it. When you actually look at the word, you start to look at statutory instruments, you'll find that if you break the word down, 2 words down, you'll find it is a written, legal, created contract. So I probably said that wrong, but I'm just going, because I haven't talked about this stuff for a long time. But it's a contract. So they've created this contract, and the contract is and every contract is issued and enforced upon people via a notice. A notice is an offer of a contract. That's how you would perceive it in the civil world. In normal day-to-day life, it's not. It's a notice of intent So there's instruments of intentions and there's notices of intentions, and they are noticing you. They are informing you of their intent, and their intent is in some way to relieve you of a commodity called money. That's what they want to do. They want to relieve you of that commodity or the possessions you acquired through that commodity.
So we, as the people of this country, we are unwittingly working for a corporation. I mean, people will get up and go to work,
absolutely,
and do a job each day, but the person that they're actually working for is the government.
Absolutely, because the shareholders, the 26 Lord Archbishops are the most important part of the shareholder foundation, because the rest of the peers are. They are small shareholders. They do have, because they're obviously landowners, and this is what it was all about. This all goes back into history, into Magna Carta. The whole concept of this started with Magna Carta and King John in around 1213. But the point is, it's the 26 Lord Archbishops who are really there to maintain the real interests of the number one shareholder, the man at the top of the pile, which is the only legal sovereign in the world, called the Supreme Pontiff. But when you start to look at the Supreme Pontiff and you look at the structure of the Roman Catholic Church, or the Holy Roman Empire, whatever you want to call it, you actually see exactly the same going on. And that, again, has shareholders. And it's them shareholders that people know nothing of. They know nothing about these shareholders. How they did it was they formulated command structure through corporations. Religion tells you of the Trinity, the Father, Son and the Holy Ghost. But it doesn't talk of the shareholders, because there's always four. There's always a chairman who works for a vice chairman who's one of the managing directors, board of directors, who the board of directors, that's the three. So you've got the chairman, the vice chairman, the board of directors, but then there's the shareholders. Shareholders never talked about. So in religion, they formulated the Trinity. And then most people will know that London is the city of finance, Washington is defence, and the Vatican they put down as religion, but it's not, it's law. It's just simple law. That's where all the law comes from, because it's ecclesiastical canon law. It's wrote by the Vatican, it's wrote by the legal minds in the Vatican. But it's never the shareholders that are talked about, and that's why the Trinity was designed specifically to hide the shareholders, so the shareholders are never known. And it's only when if you go and look at the company formulation, and you go and look at any company, and you can get the directors, not problems, you can't get shareholders. You'll never know who's got shares in what. No one does.
So the shareholders must be pretty wealthy.
Very wealthy, yeah, very wealthy. But they live in a prison. They live in a prison within a prison. Because they have to maintain that wealth. They had to protect that wealth. And that creates a prison. Because they can't live normal lives. They can't do as we do.
Yeah.
They can't live the lives as we live, because their lives are taken up in this constant battle to protect what they have. So they create a prison, and they live within a prison. So, and what basically happens is, as the process goes on, and depending on how far you get up the chain, you create prison after prison after prison after prison. So each one becomes its own separate prison within a prison. And when they're trapped in this, there is no way out, because it's greed. It's like a fire. It's got to consume everything around it. It's got to be constantly fueled. This is why the ministers and the Prime Minister who go to work every day in a building that looks strangely like a church. This is why they are always recruiting, because it's built on a lie and it's a belief system, and belief systems only stay alive if people keep believing. So to keep people believing, they have to keep recruiting, and that's why the church is constantly trying to recruit. This is why politics is constantly trying to make everybody say, yeah, it's politics is the answer. Politics, we can do this. And they use democracy. And everyone says, yeah, we've got a voice through democracy. We can talk. They haven't got a voice at all. They're actually being completely conned, because it's orchestrated, which I talked about earlier. It is absolutely orchestrated, because these are control freaks.
So all of the laws, the legislations, the acts, the statutes, we believe that they're here to protect us and look after us. are they actually just there to...
They're doing the opposite. The absolute opposite. Laws, statutes and acts are oppression. They're there for oppression. They are the laws of oppression.
To make the company run smoothly.
Absolutely. Because the company must have money. And that money must come from somewhere. And what I've done, and a lot of others have done, have proven without doubt that these people are very irresponsible with money because of the amount of county court judgments they have registered against them. But what people don't say to themselves, and they don't realise, is whose money are they being irresponsible with?
Whose money is it?
The public's. If these people are irresponsible with money, where do they get the money from in the first place? Via taxation. So that means that taxation, you are being asked to contribute to something. If you're being asked to contribute to something through way of taxation or national insurance or whatever way it comes, then you have a right to know where that money's gone and what it's been used on. But why, if these people profess to do everything in honesty, why are there so many secrets? Why do they have secretaries, keepers of secrets? It's one of the definitions. It's actually the first definition that comes up for the word secretary.
So they make statutes and legislations. Are statutes, legislations and laws, are they all the same thing?
Absolutely. All exactly the same thing. There is no difference between them. They are basically simple laws of oppression. And they have two systems of it as well. Like I said, they've got one that protects them, and they have one that causes the oppression or enforces the oppression of the people. Going back to democracy, like I said, if you define slavery as the oppression of people through violence, then democracy is no different. There is no difference in it whatsoever. And if you legally define the word democracy, you will find that the concept of liberty is the core of all democratic processes. But as a legal concept, it defies definition. It's obvious it defies definition because it's slavery and they can't tell you.
When does this slavery begin? Are we born into it?
Oof, blimey. When did it begin?
For each person in this country, when I was born...
Yeah, basically that's what happens to you. You're enslaved by... See, it works on a three generations. That's all it works on. The process, nothing comes down generic. It's not even inherited. It's how you're treated, then you will go on to treat the same. But you have to break the cycle. So you have to break the cycle every third generation. So they know this. So instead of allowing the cycle to be broken every third generation, which generally works out about every 100 years, they have to renew the cycle. That's why you see massive similarities between what's going on now and 100 years ago in 1910. In 1910, there was a coalition government, there was a hung parliament, there was actually two elections in that year, one in the January, one in the December. Edward VII, the monarch who died at the latter part of 1910, actually forced Asquith to have a second general election. That ended up in a hung parliament. That ended up in a coalition government, which happened to be the Liberals and Sinn Féin. Now we have the Liberals and the Conservatives. So every 100 years, it starts again. It mirrors itself. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how far you go back, this happens because it's every third generation. They know full well that the intent has to be re-established every 3 generations. Otherwise, it's progressive. It will start to undo itself. It will never quite actually undo itself until the intent's changed completely. But see, the good intent is more powerful than the bad intent. So if you've got a good intent, the progressiveness of the good intent is far greater, far quicker, far, far quicker.